better. 7 days. Most people think 7 days is too short to change a life. They believe transformation takes years. They tell themselves they'll start next month, next Monday, next year when life becomes easier, when they have more money, more time, or more motivation. But here's what I've learned. A week may not completely change your life, but it can absolutely change the direction of your life. And once your direction changes, your destination eventually changes with it. I didn't wake up one morning with unlimited confidence. I didn't suddenly become disciplined. I didn't suddenly stop overthinking. The biggest changes in my life didn't begin with one massive decision. They began with a few small habits repeated every single day. That's the secret most people overlook. Your life is rarely changed by one extraordinary moment. It is changed by ordinary decisions that become daily habits. There was an old shipbuilder who spent his entire life building boats along the coast. One afternoon, a young apprentice looked at a finished ship and said, "It's incredible that something so huge came from this small workshop." The old man smiled and replied, "No, it came from thousands of small pieces that refused to be placed carelessly." Your future is exactly the same. It isn't built by one big decision. It's built by hundreds of small ones. The first habit that changed everything for me was learning to own my mornings before the world owned them. For years, I used to wake up and immediately reach for my phone, messages, notifications, news, social media. Before I even spoke one encouraging word to myself, I had already filled my mind with everyone else's opinions, problems, and expectations. Without realizing it, I was allowing the world to decide how I felt before I even stood up. One morning, I made a simple decision. For the first hour after waking up, the phone would stay away. Instead, I sat quietly. I prayed, I reflected, I read a few pages, I wrote down what kind of person I wanted to become. Nothing dramatic happened that first morning, but something peaceful happened. My thoughts became clearer, my reactions became calmer, my focus became stronger. By the seventh day, I noticed something remarkable. The day no longer controlled me. I had begun controlling the day. The way you begin your morning often determines how you experience your evening. Protect your first hour. It quietly shapes the next 23. The second habit was keeping one promise to myself every single day. Notice I didn't say 10 promises, just one, because I realized something painful. Every time I told myself I would do something and didn't do it, I weakened my own trust. If I promised I would wake up early, I did it. If I promised I would exercise for 20 minutes, I did it. If I promised to read 10 pages, I finished them. People often ask how confidence is built. Confidence isn't built because people believe in you. It's built because you begin believing your own word. There was once an elderly clockmaker whose clocks almost never stopped working. Someone asked him how they remained so reliable. He replied, "Because every tiny gear keeps its promise." Think about that. A clock doesn't work because of one important gear. It works because every small part consistently does its job. Your character works exactly the same way. Small promises, repeated daily, create extraordinary confidence. The third habit that changed my life was learning to spend time alone without feeling lonely. Most people fear silence. The moment everything becomes quiet, they immediately search for noise, music, television, scrolling, messages, anything to avoid hearing their own thoughts. I used to be the same. Until one evening, I decided to sit alone with nothing but a notebook. At first, it felt uncomfortable. My mind wandered everywhere. But after several days, I noticed something. The noise inside my mind slowly became quieter. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't reacting. I was thinking. I began asking myself better questions. Where am I wasting time? What habits are stealing my future? What kind of man do I truly want to become? Those quiet conversations changed more than years of distraction ever had. There was once a sculptor who spent hours staring at a block of marble before making his first cut. Someone asked, "Why do you wait so long?" He answered, "I'm not waiting. I'm learning to see what everyone else overlooks." Silence helps you see what constant noise hides. Never underestimate the power of quiet moments. The fourth habit surprised me the most. I stopped complaining, not because life suddenly became easy, because I realized complaining had never solved a single problem. Every complaint consumed energy. Every excuse delayed progress. One afternoon, an elderly farmer noticed his grandson becoming frustrated because heavy rain had destroyed part of their field. The boy kept saying, "This isn't fair." The old farmer listened patiently before saying, "The rain doesn't ask whether it's fair. It simply falls. Now decide whether you'll spend the day complaining about the weather or planning again tomorrow." That sentence stayed with me. Life doesn't reward endless complaints. Life rewards those who continue planting. Every challenge gives you two choices: become bitter or become better. The decision belongs to you. During that week, I made another promise. Every time I caught myself complaining, I replaced the complaint with one action. Instead of saying, "I'm too tired," I stood up and worked for 10 more minutes. Instead of saying, "I don't have enough time," I turned off distractions. Instead of saying, "Life isn't giving me opportunities," I asked, "What skill can I improve today?" Your questions determine your direction. Ask powerless questions. Receive powerless answers. Ask better questions. Build a better life. Then came the fifth habit, perhaps the most important of them all. I began ending every single day with gratitude instead of regret. Before sleeping, I wrote down 3 things, not expensive things, not extraordinary moments, simple things, a lesson I learned, a conversation that encouraged me, a mistake that taught me wisdom, the ability to breathe, the chance to try again tomorrow. Something remarkable happened. My attention shifted. Instead of constantly focusing on what was missing, I started noticing what had always been present. Gratitude doesn't ignore problems. It prevents problems from becoming your entire identity. There was once a traveler crossing a desert who complained every day about the heat. Another traveler walked beside him silently. Finally, the first man asked, "Why don't you complain?" The second smiled. "Because every minute I spend complaining is a minute I'm not walking toward water." That is wisdom. Keep walking, keep growing, keep improving. Don't allow temporary frustration to distract you from permanent purpose. Those 5 habits didn't magically solve every problem in my life. They didn't make every day easy. They didn't remove every obstacle. But within 1 week, they changed something far more important. They changed me. And once I began changing, my decisions changed. My attitude changed. My confidence changed. My future began changing. Because transformation always begins on the inside before it becomes visible on the outside. And that is the part most people never see. They see the confidence, but they don't see the habits that created it. They see the discipline, but they don't see the mornings when you wanted to quit and chose not to. They see the results, but they never witnessed the quiet decisions that produced them. Success has always been like an iceberg. The visible part is small. The invisible part carries all the weight. If you want a different life, stop chasing visible results and start building invisible habits. 1 week may sound ordinary, but ordinary days repeated with intention become extraordinary years. Think about a pilot flying an airplane across the ocean. If he changes the direction by just 1 degree, the passengers won't notice it during the first few minutes. Even after an hour, everything still looks almost the same. But hundreds of miles later, that tiny adjustment leads to an entirely different destination. Your habits work exactly like that. 1 degree of improvement today, 1 better decision tomorrow, 1 extra chapter read, 1 unnecessary distraction avoided, 1 promise kept. None of those actions seem dramatic in the moment, but together they quietly redirect your future. There was once an old violin maker whose instruments were known throughout the country. A young apprentice watched him spend nearly an hour polishing a part of the violin that most people would never even notice. Finally, the apprentice asked, "Why spend so much time on something no one will see?" The old craftsman smiled and replied, "Because excellence begins where applause ends." Those words stayed with me. Most people only work hard when someone is watching. The strongest people work with excellence even when nobody knows their name. Character is built in private. Discipline is built in private. Integrity is built in private. And eventually what you practice in private becomes impossible to hide in public. Another habit I added during that week was learning to guard my attention. I realized that my mind had become like an open door. Every opinion entered, every negative headline entered, every unnecessary argument entered, every distraction entered. Then I wondered why I felt overwhelmed. Imagine owning a beautiful garden but allowing anyone to throw weeds into it every day. Would you expect flowers to grow? Of course not. Your mind deserves the same protection. Be careful what you watch. Be careful what you read. Be careful who you listen to, because your thoughts become your words. Your words become your actions. Your actions become your habits, and your habits quietly become your destiny. There was an elderly librarian who had spent more than 50 years surrounded by books. Someone once asked him, "What is the greatest book you've ever read?" He smiled and answered, "The one I actually apply." That answer contains incredible wisdom. Knowledge alone doesn't change lives. Application does. Reading about discipline doesn't make you disciplined. Thinking about confidence doesn't make you confident. Listening to motivational speeches doesn't transform you. Transformation begins the moment information becomes action. Never mistake inspiration for progress. Inspiration feels exciting. Progress requires consistency. Another thing I discovered during those 7 days was the power of finishing what I started. I noticed how often I began something with excitement and abandoned it as soon as it became difficult. A book half read, a workout plan half finished, a goal forgotten, an idea never completed. Then one afternoon, I watched an old mason building a stone wall. He carefully placed one stone after another without rushing. Someone asked him, "Don't you ever get tired of doing the same thing?" He smiled. "I don't focus on the entire wall. I focus on placing the next stone correctly." That lesson changed the way I approach every goal. Stop becoming overwhelmed by the size of the mountain. Take the next step. Finish today's work. Tomorrow will have its own responsibilities. The future is built one faithful day at a time. I also learned that discipline becomes much easier when your environment supports your goals. If healthy food isn't available, poor choices become easier. If your phone sits beside your bed, distractions become easier. If your time is constantly surrounded by negativity, discouragement becomes easier. Success isn't only about willpower, it's also about preparation. Create an environment where good decisions become easier than bad ones. Put the book where you'll see it. Lay out your workout clothes the night before. Write your goals somewhere you cannot ignore them. Small changes in your environment quietly shape big changes in your behavior. There was once a sailor who tied every knot before the storm arrived. A younger sailor laughed and asked, "Why prepare when the sky is still clear?" The older man answered, "'Cause storms never schedule appointments." Prepare before life becomes difficult. Build discipline before temptation arrives. Build savings before emergencies happen. Build wisdom before success comes. Preparation gives confidence because it removes unnecessary panic. Another habit that transformed me was replacing comparison with personal progress. For years, I measured myself against other people. Someone earned more, someone looked stronger, someone achieved success faster. The more I compared, the less grateful I became. Then one morning, I asked myself a different question. Am I better than I was yesterday? That question changed everything, because the only competition that truly matters is between the person you were and the person you're becoming. Growth isn't about defeating someone else, it's about refusing to remain the same. Imagine climbing a mountain with a group of people. Some walk faster, some slower. If you spend the entire climb watching everyone else, you'll miss your own footing. Keep your eyes on your path. Walk at your pace. Trust your progress. One steady step every day will eventually carry you farther than occasional bursts of motivation. Looking back, none of these habits required extraordinary talent. They required a decision to wake up with intention, a decision to honor my own word, a decision to welcome silence instead of fearing it, a decision to replace complaints with responsibility, a decision to practice gratitude every evening, a decision to guard my attention, a decision to finish what I started, a decision to prepare instead of procrastinate, a decision to compete only with yesterday's version of myself. Those decisions looked small, but they carried enormous consequences. Because habits are votes. Every action is a vote for the person you're becoming. Every time you choose discipline, you're voting to become disciplined. Every time you choose courage, you're voting to become courageous. Every time you choose honesty, you're voting to become trustworthy. And every time you choose comfort over growth, you're also casting a vote. The question is simple. Who are you voting to become? So beginning today, don't wait for another Monday. Don't wait for another month. Don't wait until life feels easier. Take 1 week, just 7 days. Protect your mornings. Keep one promise to yourself every day. Spend time in silence. Replace complaints with action. End each day with gratitude. Guard your attention. Finish what you begin. Focus on becoming 1% better than yesterday. Those habits may not make you rich in 7 days. They may not solve every problem overnight, but they will do something even more valuable. They will begin changing the person looking back at you in the mirror. And when that person changes, your decisions change, your standards change, your confidence changes, your future changes. Because lasting transformation never begins with luck. It begins with daily choices repeated until they become part of who you are. So don't underestimate the power of 1 week. Live with purpose. 1 week can become 1 month. 1 month can become 1 year. 1 year can become an entirely different life. And years from now, people may look at your success and call you fortunate. They'll never realize it all began with 7 ordinary days and 5 simple habits that you refuse to abandon.